All right. Right. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2026 IMG Match Panel. My name is Lindsay, and I'm honored to serve as a moderator for today's session. It's wonderful to see so many participants joining us to learn and connect and celebrate the achievements of our newly matched residents in physical medicine and rehabilitation. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the incredible team behind this event, Pathways and PM&R IMG Committee. This initiative is dedicated to supporting international medical graduates as they navigate their journey into PM&R, providing mentorship, guidance, and community. Our hosting team includes Paul, Veronica, Daniel, Adwa, Bowen, and two of our wonderful speakers, SJ and Emily. Each of them have played a vital role in organizing today's session and ensuring that it runs smoothly. We are also joined by our panel of newly matched residents who have generously taken the time to share their experiences and insights and advice. So thank you to each of our speakers for being here and you're willing to give back to the community. Your perspectives are invaluable in those preparing for the match and exploring their own paths in PM&R. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge Pathways and PM&R for their continued commitment to fostering inclusivity, mentorship, and professional growth within the field. And their efforts have created and supported environments for IMGs and trainings where we can thrive, collaborate, and find guidance throughout our careers. Before we move into the discussion tonight, I like to highlight a few of the resources that may be helpful for everyone here. Adwa will be sharing a PowerPoint presentation titled Match the Power, which outlines key strategies and timelines and insights for navigating the residency match process. Additionally, we like to draw attention to a recent publication from the Pathways and PM&R IMG team, which explores the impact for such webinars on the confidence and knowledge in international medical graduates in the field. And also, I want to call to action that we encourage everyone to stay connected with the Pathways and PM&R community. Our Instagram and our WhatsApp group links will be shared in the chat as well. And these platforms are great ways to stay informed about upcoming events, access resources, and engage with peers, mentors who share the same passion for PM&R. Once again, thank you all for joining today. We're excited to hear from our panelists, learn more about their journeys, and continue building a strong, supportive community within PM&R. Before we begin, a quick note on the questions. So please feel free to drop your questions in the Zoom chat throughout the presentations. Our speakers can answer them there, and then we're also going to have a dedicated Q&A time with each session. Okay, so let's begin with our first speaker session, speaking on two critical components for a successful match: networking and mentorship, as well as research. Our first speaker is Anna, who will discuss networking and mentorship in the match process. Please welcome Anna.
Hello, everyone. It's a great opportunity to be here. I'll just share my screen. So my name, can you see it? Yeah, I think you can. Okay, so my name is Anna, and I recently matched into University of Minnesota. First of all, I would like to, here we go. I would like to talk a little bit about my journey so you can have a little bit of context. All the tips I'm gonna say here are based on my experience, but each experience is very different. So in 2022, I finished medical school in Guatemala, and I didn't graduate right away because I was doing my thesis. I worked at a small hospital, and then I moved to the US because of my husband, that he was working here. Then on 2023, I had a ski accident, which introduced me into PM&R, but that made me not be able to get involved in person with different activities. So I did everything online, and I think This is very useful for people who can't be in the US or can't be working, or are medical students that are doing rotations, and they can do it online as well. You can start early. So I joined this course, this research course from Harvard. It was totally online. And for my luck, the director was a teacher in PM&R in Harvard. So there I was able to publish some research, and then I started also volunteering online for a Guatemalan nonprofit. That's where I'm from. I'm from Guatemala, I forgot to mention. So in 2024, I studied for my step one. I studied for like 7 months, and I started volunteering in the US hospitals. I did in orthopedics and then in PM&R, and also adaptive sports. I started applying for rotations, and I just wanted to give what my experience was for applying for away rotations. I emailed almost every program to the program coordinator, and everybody said no. This is normal. And I've heard some people get more opportunities by talking to residents. So maybe it's a good way to get away rotations more than the program coordinator. That's what I've seen. Um, I also started cold emailing people if I could join research, and I started doing virtual research into with one resident, and she was working with artificial intelligence, using artificial intelligence to guide Gasserian ganglion blocks for migraine. So it was more pain medicine. Um, then in 2025, I completed away rotations that I got through my medical school, not through my cold emailing, sadly. Oh well, I got one from cold emailing. That was the University of Washington, but again, it was through talking to a resident. And I did one in UPMC and one in Spalding. I took step two. I studied for like 5 months, and then I finally graduated. So if your school lets you do this, I think it's a great opportunity to push your graduation, because that way you can study for steps and then complete your way rotations as a medical student. And that way you will be able to do it more as a clerkship than an observership. I became then a teaching assistant of the research course, started presenting at APM&R, and I kept volunteering. So why is PM&R different from other specialties, and why in PM&R is networking so important? And this is because it's a small specialty. Everybody knows each other. It's a very relationship-based specialty, so it's important that you show that you can keep connections. Also, parents want to know you understand the specialty, that you're committed and you're team-oriented. Mentorship will help you to make the hidden curriculum visible. I didn't know about this at the start. So I think having a mentor from the start and telling you like, this is how our things are done, and this is what program directors are looking for from the start is very useful. Also, mentors can help you strengthen your story, because each story is different, and people who have applied know what programs are looking for, or even attendings. Also to identify opportunities and navigate the application process. So who can we network with? Residents and attending, especially IMGs. I think IMGs are really open to helping other IMGs because usually someone else helped them. Program directors are also people who can be mentors, but always read the room and be respectful. Other applicants are also a way of networking because they can share opportunities. And don't underestimate any connection. Sometimes even the coordinator for the away rotation can be a great connection. And it's a hit or miss. Have backups. Sometimes you need a mentor for applying to away rotations, sometimes for taking steps, and sometimes for different things. So what I did versus what I wish I did. I started virtually. I Um, Cold emailed people. I messaged on social media. I think it's very important to follow organizations as pathways of PM&R, AA, PM&R, and all of those, and look for contacts there. Sometimes organizations will share contacts. For example, I got my contact for the virtual reality with artificial intelligence research through an organization, and also follow programs on Instagram early. That's something I wish I did, because that way you start understanding like how the program works, and it's not only useful for the start, but also when you're deciding where to apply to. And one of the most important things for me, at least, was contacting panelists from Zoom meetings like this one. Usually people who are talking in Zoom meetings are really open to keeping a relationship with you. And usually people share their emails through that. And also it could be through the virtual residency fair or different Zooms. It doesn't have to be this one, but I feel like that's where I got most of my mentors, more than even away rotations. Also, virtual, you can do research. You can look for US clinical opportunities. There was this one US clinical opportunities I got. I didn't end up going, but it's called NY Reach, and you can apply online, and then you can like volunteer for a month or two, and then they will give you rotations for free. So that was useful for me at the moment when I didn't know if I was going to be able to do the away rotations where I wanted to do them. And also something I didn't do, but I wish I did, was to join a PM&R organization. I know many of people who have matched have been in a PM&R organization. So use clinical experience and how mentorship and networking works here. First, one tip that helped me a lot was ask about expectations. The first thing I did was ask the resident, do you think I should ask the letter of recommendations at the start or at the end? And it would depend on the personality of the attending. And I think this was really useful, because not every attending is the same, and that way you can start reading the room in a better way. Also, attendings. At the start of your rotation, always ask like what is expected of me. And when I was doing my US clinical experiences, I cold emailed every program director and asked them if I could meet with them to talk about the rotation and tips on how to apply. And I think this was really useful, and it opened a lot of doors. Always present yourself and to everyone, because it's hard to keep up with all the people that are working in the program. So it's important to always be nice and present yourself. And sometimes opportunities can open from just presenting yourself. Something that's really important when networking in US clinical experiences, it's to be teachable and to ask for feedback. This is a goal on the slow, and it's like, how teachable is this person? And it's important to keep this in mind, because you'll probably have things you can work on. And if you're always asking for feedback, like for example, you finish the first week and you ask your attending, what could I do better? Even the residents. And when they tell you like you can do this better, don't leave it there. Like follow up, ask, am I doing better? What can I have worked with? Also fish for opportunities and be creative. I think this was something that enriched my application a lot. I didn't ask for to be involved in a specific research, but I looked for a case report and then asked my attending, like, do you want to be involved? So I was giving the attending the solution. Like, I was not asking for to be involved in something that was already created, but it's easier for an attending to say yes if you are creating something and they are just like joining. And it's important to always improve and show your strength. In conferences, I went to AAPM&R, and what helped me was to make a plan. And I researched in the app what people were going to be there, and I um, researched on these people and planned what I wanted to say, because that way you don't go there and don't know what to say. People appreciate this more. Like, for example, if there's this program director that is doing this research and you're really interested in, like, you could talk about that specifically, not just say, "Oh, I'm interested in your program." I also emailed people I wanted to catch up with. For example, the attendings I met in the away rotations, and also residents, and that way also I got more people coming to my presentation of my posters, so that was nice. um, really nervous before going to the conference, and I even listened to a podcast on how to network, and that was helpful for me. So if you ever feel nervous or something like that, there are always things you can look for in the internet. And I met other students and applicants. Um, all of the students that were applying, that were IMGs, that were at the AAPM&R, ended up matching. So it's a good way to meet people, not only for networking at the moment, but also for the future. And also use social media and program networking events. Sometimes in Instagram, programs would post like, "We have a networking event and you can just attend." Of course, you have to see if they are open to everyone going there, because you won't just appear and not be invited. But also sometimes they will say like, "We're gonna have this presentation, so you go to the presentations of people who are attending at the program you're interested in." And something I wish I did, but I didn't do, was attend New York Society of PM&R events and local program events. I was living in New York, and I I didn't know that this was a thing. So if you're in the US, look always for events that are local. And in the application preparation for networking, I talked with different mentors at each stage. It was not the same mentor all the time. This worked for me because I feel I didn't want to burden like one person with my whole application. Um, One person reviewed my personal statement and my experiences, and this was one program director I cold emailed at one away rotation, so that was really useful. Also to practice interviews. And also one thing I didn't know that was like a hidden curriculum for me was to ask residents and attendings to advocate for me. And um, what I didn't do was ask a mentor to help me choose which programs to apply to. And I think this is really important, because then you can apply to programs that you will have more opportunities with. So where to build connections, cold emailing, social media. I was in this Zoom meeting that talked about how Twitter is really important in PM&R. I haven't been really involved with Twitter, but in Instagram, I can tell you through the years, I've been able to get some mentors, PM&R organizations, away rotations, Zoom meetings, and conferences. That's where I met my program director from University of Minnesota. And I already had the invite to the interview, but I think networking with them at that event made all the difference, because we were able to talk, and we were even like joking around, and it was really nice. It's not the same as being in the interview. You have to be more formal, so that's something. So like general tips, always read the room and try to match the energy. Sometimes your mentors will want to joke around, sometimes they won't. So it's important to try to match their energy. Be proactive. Sometimes I know it's difficult. It was for me. But if you see, so like every minute counts. If you're in a PM&R setting, every minute counts. So try to make the best of it. And know that this is part of the process and it's expected. So don't feel bad for asking help. I was always feeling bad for asking help, but now I know that it's expected and that people are actually really open to helping. Opportunities are there. We just have to find them. And always follow up. That's really important because sometimes you think that because you talk to this person one day, like the connection is made. That's not true. You always have to try to follow up, of course, and try not to overdo it because sometimes people are busy. Um, be yourself. I think this is one of the most important things because you will end up matching at the program that will match your energy the most. And investigate before. Always before talking to someone, try to know their background, their expertise, so you can actually have a conversation and to bring something to the conversation that's related to them, and that will make a better connection. And bring ideas. Like um, if you want to join a research that's going on, you can say like, I think we could do this with this research, and that way people appreciate more that you are trying to reach out because you are being proactive and not trying to be passive and they giving you the opportunity, but you also giving something back. And there was this question about hidden opportunities. I think these are really personal and not the same for everyone. This is what worked for me, but I know other people's have gotten different opportunities from joining different things. So it's always important to talk to as many people as you want, as you can. One person is not enough because um, every situation is very different. So thank you for this opportunity, and I will share my email if anyone wants to talk to me. I am really happy if I could talk to anyone.
Thank you so much. Yes, please share your email in the chat. I know we all enjoyed the gems that you just bestowed on us. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, Akash. He's going to be discussing networking and mentorship. Just want to privy to our speakers that, we want to give everyone time enough to uh, do their entire presentation. So just be mindful of the other speakers. I didn't caveat that before, but I'm doing it now. But great job, Anna. Loved it. All right, Akash, take it away. We are ready for you.
Hi guys, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, no? Okay. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. All right, can you guys see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay, thanks. You guys are sending reactions. I'm really sorry I can't see your reactions, but I'm assuming you guys are putting thumbs up somewhere on there. Okay, so like we mentioned, we're talking about networking and mentorship again. Luckily for me, Anna did all the heavy work, so I don't really have to talk about as much. Um, so I guess what we're going to try to do here is first, okay. What we're going to try to do here is try to go a little bit more in detail about the things that I feel like I didn't get to know as much. But I did try to include everything in here. So I do tend to yap. If I'm going past time, please stop me and let me know. So really quickly, this is kind of the list of what we're going to be talking about, why networking matters, building a network, what to do once you get that network, that connections, and then some concluding remarks. All right, so starting off first with why networking matters, Anand basically mentioned it perfectly. PM&R is a very small field. It basically, like, if you know someone and they're willing to advocate for you, it goes so far. The other major reason is that networking basically gives you an understanding of what PM&R is and what it means. And what I mean by that is essentially when you go to like things like conferences, which we'll talk about soon, you get to hear a little bit of everyone's perspective of like why they got interested in PM&R. And I think combining that with like your own interest, like your own story, you should be able to kind of figure out a way to kind of sell yourself in such a way. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but there are certain buzzwords that pretty much like every PM&R doctor uses in some way. And so kind of learning how to incorporate that into your own story, I think is very important. So a little bit of story time, and I have included a lot of these. So my story is essentially, I think I'm the perfect person to be talking about networking and mentorship because I, stats wise, was really horrible. I failed step one, had to repeat my internal medicine rotation, somehow very luckily matched. And I attribute that to basically everything that I've done in terms of networking, mentorship. And I'll talk a lot about that throughout this time. I put a lot of effort in, and I think I just got kind of very lucky. Um, super inspired, super happy, but I also sometimes feel a little bit bad about it. Um, I am a US IMG, so my stories are a little bit different than what a lot of you guys are going to be going through. So I can't speak as much about US CEs because I did most of mine at my school. But I can try to mention everything else, and I'll try to include resources when I'm sending this PowerPoint out. So building a network, what does that actually mean? Well, there's essentially like these list of things. You can go to conferences, research, or join organizations, do rotations, and cold emailing. And I'm going to try to tackle each one a little bit through and give you guys some examples of like what I did. So for conferences, first things first, the main conferences that you need to know about is AAPM&R and AAP. There are other ones. The osteopathic side, they have AOC PM&R. Anyone is technically welcome, and they are smaller. And the reason why I say that is because as PM&R is growing as a field, it might be more beneficial to go to smaller conferences because I've noticed that they're kind of starting to wane off of seeing students in the bigger conferences just because there's so many of them. And I think PM&R as a field really does care about like mentorship and trying to figure out people that fit in the field. But when there's so many med students coming up to them all the time, they're kind of hesitant to like talk to anyone because they can't talk to everyone. So some of the subspecialty conferences, if you're interested, spinal cord injury has Asia, neuromuscular has American Academy of Electrodiagnostic Medicine, brain injury has North Atlantic Brain Injury Society, sports has American Medical Society for Sports Medicine, as ASRA is for pain. I didn't put on there, but pediatric has several different types, Muscular Dystrophy Association, and then there's ACPDM, which is American Academy of Cerebral Palsy and Developmental Medicine. So there's multiple other organizations you can go to that have more of a niche field, but making those connections at those places is going to be a little bit easier. So what do you actually do at these conferences? Here's my thing. I think everyone when I asked told me, oh, just go and talk, just go and make connections. People will just naturally incline. And I would say that was probably true about 2 years ago. And I'll tell you a little about my story of that. But I think even if you do not get those connections, the most important thing that you can do, one of the major reasons you should still go, is again, trying to understand how other people feel about PM&R. Because you'll hear a lot of the buzzwords over and over and over again, and it will like subconsciously just ring into your brain. The other things that you can do is like go to sessions that you're interested in when you go to these conferences, and afterwards just ask questions. Because people love when you're curious about the work. And if you keep showing curiosity, people will often offer you like, hey, do you want to talk to me? Here's my business card. And I got so many of those. And I think those really did help me kind of get interviews and stuff like that. Other thing is finding human interests. Like it doesn't have to be about PM&R, to be quite honest. Everyone in PM&R is super, super, super chill. I don't know if I can curse, but super fucking chill. And so, just talk about anything that you're interested in. And if they're interested in the same thing, do a little bit of research beforehand and you can pretty much get your way through. The last thing I would say is like, if you can do research, do your own research. And I'll talk a little bit about research too, but we'll get there. So buzzwords, I kept mentioning buzzwords. The things that I hear a lot, improving functionality, focusing on quality of life, working in multidisciplinary teams. That's something like every physiatrist will say, no matter regardless of the subspecialty. So get used to hearing those words and try to figure out ways to kind of say the same thing in your own way, because it really does make sense when you go into interviews, because you'll hear them like nodding, you'll feel them nodding their head and approving as you're kind of talking. And I think it does make a difference. So my story time. Okay, so in terms of conferences, I have gone to several opportunities, just going to conferences. One of the major ones, as Anna mentioned, I think residents are a lot more open. So it's a lot easier to talk to the residents. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to get something out of it. Get used to that. But it could. And one of the things that happened for me is that I ended up having like even long-term research partner now who I'm still working on research projects with. And she and I originally met at one of the other things, virtual residency fair. And then we started working on pediatric rehab stuff together. And I think that it really did help me get an interview at that place. The other thing I was going to say is that when I mentioned conferences 2 years ago, I did talk to someone at a program who I wasn't even applying during that time, but I just really enjoyed having a conversation about cryoneurolysis. And I just was continuously asking questions. And afterwards, I didn't email him, but he emailed me asking like, oh, did you apply to this program? Because I can't find you. So people will look for you if you'd like actually show interest and they actually do like you. So in terms of research, many ways to get research. Main things are home institution, nationwide medical organizations such as this one, and then cold emailing targeted mentors. I'll talk a little bit about cold emailing. There's not really a right way or wrong way to do it. Most people in PM&R are really open. Also, don't limit yourself to PM&R. It doesn't have to be PM&R related. It can be neuro, it could be rheumatology, sports. The most important thing is you find a way to twist it to make sense for PM&R. As long as you do that, I think they really don't care. I did a lot of mine in machine learning because that's what I have background in. And so I basically just took a lot of open source data and then tried to figure out ways to progress the field using that. In terms of organizations rotations, I wish I could have included all the links to everything and shown you guys all the links, but we don't have enough time for that. So we're just going to run through. Pathways is here, AAP Medical Students Council, AAP PM&R Student Ambassadors, Representation Rehab, which is actually looking for med students right now, which I think most of you guys would be included in, even if you're graduated. The other thing is rotations. I would say that this is probably one of the most important things just because they're the ones that can kind of see you clinically, which is one of the things I think residents, like directors, are kind of looking for. Because if you are good clinically, that's one of the major check marks. If you have access to VSLO, do that, but I know a lot of you don't. So it's going to be finding observerships, which is going to take a little bit longer. I believe that Pathways, especially the IMG team, correct me if I'm wrong, is trying to figure out a resource to release hopefully later on this year for that. So hopefully it'll be there by the time you guys are using it. So I'm not sure. In terms of cold emailing, like I said, there's a huge reception for cold emailing. There's no right or wrong way. Basically, what I think it can be done for is like securing rotations. I know that one of my friends told me about like this one program that doesn't have a residency, but they were really open to just having people over. You might not be able to put it on your MSPE. And in that case, I'd recommend putting it on your application itself, which I'm assuming the other people are probably going to talk about a little bit. I will say, though, that with the rising competition, PM&R is becoming a little bit harder. So that's story time, and I know I'm running short on time, so I'm going to try to be quick with it. So I had a really interesting stuff. Like I love doing research, as I mentioned. I had an idea for someone, and I didn't really think that they were going to reply. So I just wrote a whatever email, and I actually did get a reply. But don't be like me, because I totally forgot to reply back to them. They gave me a really great idea, and I still want to work with them someday. So if they're ever watching this, I'm sorry. I hope to work with you still. But if you cold email people, please do follow up, because people do get annoyed with that. In terms of mentorship, hopefully by this time you're like, okay, I got so many mentors. Like, what do I do with this? Figuring your stuff out. Let's go. First things first, mentors can serve multiple different roles. One thing I really wish people understood is don't force it. You don't have to be going into mentorship to be like, I'm using this to get into PM&R, because people can, I think, feel the energy. And so like, if you kind of go in it with that type of mindset, people are typically a little bit more hands off. But if you go in it like trying to actually learn from a person, trying to get something like knowledge-wise from a person, I think it goes a very long way. Just kind of try to get an idea of like when you're talking to people, what are the limits? And if you don't know, just ask. People are typically pretty open and honest about like what they're willing to do. Granted, there are some risks in doing that. Like if you're saying, hey, can you go and talk to this person for me at this conference? They might say no, and they might hurt your relationship a little bit, but sometimes it might be worth the risk just to take into consideration. So in concluding remarks, basically, it doesn't really matter how you get the connection. Just try your best. It can be through anything, honestly. Try to stay involved, and remember, authenticity is the most important thing. So I think I just finished right in time. Here's my personal email. Please feel free to email me anytime. I'm really open to anything, even if it's not about PM&R. If it's about how hard applications are, I'm okay with that. So I hope this kind of helps. I'll also put my email down in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with everyone's slides so far. Because of that, we're going to give our speakers even more time. We're going to make sure that they have time to get through all of the wonderful information they want to give to us tonight. So we are going to skip that first Q&A, but please, everyone, put your questions down into the chat. We want to have this be as interactive as possible, and our speakers will be responding to you guys in the chat. So please don't feel like you can't interact via the chat. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, Santiago. He's going to be doing our research discussion. So go ahead and take it away.
Hi.
Santiago, we can hear.
Can you see the screen?
So we cannot see your screen currently.
Oh my God. Let me try one more time. Now you see it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's working. Well, hi, I'm Santiago. I'm from Colombia. I recently matched into MedStar. And yeah, I'm supposed to talk about research, but I decided to make the presentation a little bit more general about my whole experience and some things that I think I could have done better. This is actually a story about things you should not do and things you should avoid. So, yes, my story starts in 2021. I graduated from medical school in Colombia back in 2021, and I practiced as a primary care physician for about a year and a half before moving to the States in 2023. I didn't know back then that I knew that I wanted to do PM&R here or that I wanted to do a specialty at all in the States. So I didn't build a curriculum for the match. So that's the first advice that I had for you guys is that you have to start earlier, as it has been mentioned before. It's really important that you tailor your CV from the years in medical school to what the programs want. If you want to sell, I feel like the match is
Sorry,
you.
Santiago. Are you presenting right now? We don't see anything being presented.
God, I am presenting. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just want to make
Um,
sure everyone sees your slides. We only see
the first
like
one.
the bottom bar. It says my path. We don't actually see any slides.
Okay. Let me try one more time. If not, without slides, it's not like they're
Okay.
good as the previous ones. Now I can see you guys.
Hello, Santiago. I'm Yuning. Because you sent the slides to me, so maybe I can share the slides and you can.
That would be great. I think that was Santiago of the past, knowing that this was going to happen, and
Yeah.
that's why I sent it to you.
Yeah, okay. Let me try to share.
You see, trust yourself, guys.
Yeah. How do I share the slide? Actually, sorry. Let me try.
But yeah, I can talk. So I was saying that I feel the match is you selling yourself to the programs. So you need to decide early what kind of applicant you want to be for the programs. If you want to sell yourself as the resident that is going to do research, or if you want to sell yourself as the resident that is involved in leadership roles or is involved in community service, and try to build experiences. Thank you so much. So we can go to the next slide. Experiences that can back up those stories when you're sharing them during your interviews. As it was mentioned, it's easier for you to secure U.S. clinical experience while you're still in medical school, and try to explore PM&R even if you cannot come to the States to do a rotation. If you're able to explore PM&R in your home country and you collect experiences that you can share and compare your home country healthcare system to the U.S. healthcare system, that's something the programs love you to do during the interviews. So we can go to the next slide. So in 2023, I moved to the States, and as I mentioned, I was a practicing physician in Colombia, and moving here and having to start all over again and becoming an immigrant was something that impacted me a lot as a person. And this is one of the things one of the main topics that I oriented my application towards. I used I'm an immigrant physician as one of my introduction to the programs, and back then, I didn't know that the match was so complex. I thought it was simply just passing the steps and writing an application, and that was it. So I only focused on studying for step one during the second half of 2023. So the earlier you understand that the match is not just about your scores and more about you being like a combination of multiple things, the better it is for you. And something that I wish I could have done starting from 2023, as it was mentioned before, is to start attending to conferences and networking. Later on, I learned that for the US culture, networking is essential, not only for the purposes of the match, but for almost everything in the professional world for the US. Networking is really important. So the earlier you understand that and the earlier you start being your name being heard and known, the better it's going to be for you. And continue building your profile. If you decided that you were going to sell yourself as a researcher, continue being involved in research projects, even if they're back home or if they're here in the States. That's going to continue collecting evidence that you're going to present during the interview day. So we can go to the next slide. In 2024, I didn't disclose this, but I was a non-visa required applicant. I was waiting for my immigration process at the beginning of 2024, and then I became eligible to work. I passed step one, and I decided that the best way to start working and continuing my process of application was getting a job in research. I thought that it was just as simple as applying to jobs and people were gonna call me and say, "Yeah, welcome, come, here's your job." And that was not the case. I ended up getting my job just because one of my neighbors was friends with the director of the program that of the company that ended up hiring me. Otherwise, nobody will have called me. I would be still waiting for calls. So yes, in 2024, I start working and I start focusing on step two, only study for step two and only working, which was a really bad strategy for the purposes of the match. Since I'm talking about research, I started working as a research coordinator because it's one of the entry level positions for people who have background in healthcare that doesn't have a lot of experience with research. Sometimes you non-US graduates come to this country and they want to get at any job that can pay something, but they don't know what to do because they think that the research jobs require tons of experiences. Research assistant and clinical research coordinator usually are entry-level positions, and just by having your background, your degree in healthcare, you're a desirable applicant for those positions. Something that I wish I could have done earlier too was like for mentorship, as it was mentioned, having somebody there guiding you and telling you the things that you should be doing at each stage of your process is essential for you to tailor your application and secure more opportunities for you. Um, Gaining US clinical experience while you're keeping a full-time job is challenging, but there's multiple ways to do it. I thought that the only way to do clinical experience was completing 2 3 weeks consecutive weeks of rotations, and that's why I was waiting until I was ready to apply to collect my US clinical experience. But later on I learned that you don't necessarily have to do 2 consecutive or 3 consecutive weeks of rotations in order to get exposure. If you're already in the research world and you're already working with doctors, they usually have a clinic and they usually have clinical duties too. If you can ask them if they're open for you to shadow them during their clinical duties, and that's a valid way for you to get exposure and for you to collect that U.S. clinical experience that is so mentioned and so important for the application. And finally, be willing to volunteer your time. They love when you, as Anna mentioned, if you come with ideas, it's great. But if you don't have any ideas, usually doctors have residents or themselves they have tons of research ideas that they have just waiting there because they don't have the time to deal with them. Ask them, how can I help you? Say yes to everything that they offer to you, and that's definitely gonna let them remember your name, remember that you are like enthusiastic about this, and it's going to open more opportunities for you. And we can go to the next one. So in 2025, I passed step two around March 2025, and I got my CFMG certification, and I thought, okay, I'm ready to match. Let's do this. And that's when I started looking for a mentor. I connected with Dr. Fuentes, who was great on telling me like, no, dude, you're really behind on the things you're supposed to do, and you only have 6 months to do the things that you could have done over the last 2 years. I had 6 months to collect my US clinical experience, to start going to conferences, to start presenting the results of the projects that I was working on. And it was a race against time. It was I really don't recommend waiting that long. The earlier you start, the better. It worked at the end, and I'm grateful for the results that I got. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. So we can go to the next one. So in terms of my application, just for transparency, I put like how my application looked, because people sometimes think that uh, um, applicate like having a certain number as a step two score, or having a certain number of papers is going to guarantee you a match, or having a few papers, or having a low step two score, it's going to mean that you're not going to match, and that's definitely not the case. As I said, it's more about the story that you're telling and how you make everything make sense during the interviews. Um, so my step two score was as average as it can be. I Even though I was a research coordinator, and research was like the main component of my application, I only had 3 papers and 3 posters in my application, and none of them were PM&R related. I had a couple of projects that were still ongoing, and I made sure to include them as experiences. In your application, you have space for 10 experiences. I make sure to put my PM&R projects there, so they could see that I was involved in research for PM&R too. And even though my position, I didn't mention this, my position was in palliative care research, was not PM&R related. As it was mentioned before, you are the one responsible to connect all your story to PM&R. So I was talking to every doctor how functionality, and the palliative care patients were saying that they miss their independence, and everything I was connecting during the interviews to PM&R, 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 and they love hearing that you can find the PM&R in every field, because that's true. Like PM&R is almost in every field of medicine. So the way you connect that, and if you are able to do that, they love that. Yeah, I only had 3 US clinical experience. They were all observerships. 2 were outpatient PM&R. One was inpatient. The one inpatient, I actually did it when I was later on we already submitted the application. It was like October when I was going inpatient, only because I knew that they were going to say that I didn't have any inpatient exposure. So I was making sure before the interviews that I knew what inpatient PM&R was about. I had 2 PM&R letters of recommendation. One was a slot, and the other 2 came from research. And I apply broadly. Don't underestimate the time that it takes for you to decide the programs that you want to apply to. It takes a lot of time to tailor your list to your geographic preferences, PM&R, IMG friendly, and all those components that are important for deciding on your programs. Uh, and yes, I ended up having 3 PM&R interviews and 6 prelim internal medicine. So you can imagine how anxious I was in March, because that's far from the recommended number for international graduates. But I was convinced that the story that I was sharing during the interviews was connecting and impacting the people that were interviewing me, and I made everything made sense at the end, and I think that's the reason why I ended up matching. So just to close up the next slide, the key takeaways is embrace your story. Again, you are selling yourself as a resident to the programs. So make it make sense, and embrace all the things that you have done in the past are meaningful to programs. Most of us are foreign I got the word, no foreigners. We are immigrants, so we come from different cultures. We usually speak another language, and we bring a different flavor to the table. Just by that, you're starting with something else that they haven't seen before. So embrace it, and make sure that they I'm sure that is not gonna go unnoticed. Seek for guidance early. and build your community. This is us. I only went to a PM&R 25 in physiatry this year. I didn't present any posters there, but I went there just for the networking. And as Anna mentioned, we were all there introducing ourselves, introducing each other to program directors and people. And oh, you're looking for a rotation. This person is offering rotations. They take IMGs for rotations. So build your community and make sure to say hi in the conferences. Don't be shy and stay adaptable and persistent. It's a long process. They always say is a marathon or a sprint. For me, it was a sprint, but you should run it as a marathon. And this is my contact information. You can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
You. Thank you so much. We loved your perspective. We're going to go ahead and move on to Cece. She's going to give us additional perspective about research. Go ahead, Cece.
Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I will just focus on continue to share. Oh, yes. I just focus on sharing my perspective on research part. So talk about how to present your research in application and the interview. So the first question we are thinking about the application is what is our background and what is our career goals? So the first question is what impression do you want your ERAS application to convey to the review committee? There are so many different perspectives we can present in our application profile, like clinic, research, volunteer leadership, and all of these different perspectives. Anything unique and anything you want to be remember who you are, so you can present it on your profile. And for this presentation, I just focused on research. And in my case, because I have a PhD degree in regenerative medicine and I have a postdoc training experience in osteoarthritis and translational research. So for me, when I think about what is my career goal, I would set it as a physician scientist or clinician scholar. So for each of us, when you prepare your application, you need to think about your background, your story, your profile, and your career goal. And next is how to present research on EROS. And very straightforward is there are different parts in the EROS you need to fill in. So the education part, if you have an advanced degree, you just put it there. And but for experience, we need to think about what experience we want to present in the profile. And for me, I choose a postdoc because it's osteoarthritis research, and I choose it as the most meaningful because I do think the physiatrist who could intervene at the early stage of osteoarthritis. And I choose a PhD experience because it's related to regenerative medicine. And you can write if you I put as a reviewer. I think you can put any experience like your reviewer or you work as an editor for any journal or something to as a component of your academic profile. But I think one important thing is you need to think about how each experience relates to PM&R because interview this like anything you present in your profile could be asked, and you need to tell a story, and you need to tell why this experience related to PM&R or why this experience is unique. It can help the interviewers to remember who you are. And in my case, I think the part helped me stand out is my publication because in my the peer review journal articles and abstract, I put all my publications, including like first author and or non-first author. It's 18. So during my interview, like at least two or three, they mentioned about my publication record is very impressive. So I think this part, whatever you have, you just put it there. And so, but for poster presentation and other presentations, I just put the most related to PM&R. And one tip I think I can share is when you fill in your EROS, you can put a number before your name, so that in that case your publication record could be sequenced in a way you want, like what is the first one, what is second one, what is third one, so it can. Otherwise, it will automatically sequenced by the alphabet, if I didn't remember wrong. And also, the other component is a personal statement. As I mentioned before, like from your background, it will relate it to your career goal. So in the, I think, not the paragraph or the second or the third paragraph in your statement, you need to talk about your career goal, and this is part of your like who you are. And also the letter of recommendation. I think for AMG, also IMG use a research letter is very common. But for research letter, in my case, I do wet experiment, but the research letter is not about like how the professional you are in the wet experimental skills. Your letter of recommend the writer should be common on your personality, like whether you are a good person to work with. This is the most important one. And when you request your letter, you need to have a good discussion with with the writer to tell him what you want to have to present on the letter, if this is possible. And like during the interview, how we talk about research, I think something we need to think about. Okay, first of all, research is only a small part of the interview, and I have 6 interview, and overall the impression is maybe for each program they only ask me 3 or 5 questions related to research. And when we handle these questions, you need to think about who is asking and how are they asking. So this question maybe is just a standardized question as a routine, or like the person is really want to know something detailed in your research, or the person is a specialist in your field, so you can talk something very deep. And so I put it here as a 3 level. I would say like you need to prepare 3 versions of um, 3 versions of how to present your research. First is some plain language. For example, if someone asking you is like a nurse practitioner, or the question is how you communicate with someone who is outside your field. So I think these questions they're just trying to ask you like how you communicate with patient in a plain language. So the word you need to use is just like, for me, like for regenerative medicine, we need to prepare some biomaterials and find and also growth factors, but you can just say like help cells find a house. And some middle level, like if a physician who is asking you as a standardized question, you can just say say some words like every physician or could understand what it is. Like for PM&R physician, I think everyone knows what is intra-articular injection. So I will put it as nanoparticle intra-articular injection. But if the interviewer is someone who is really in your field, like maybe because I'm in the field of osteoarthritis, and maybe the person is a sports medicine specialist, and we can really talk deep about the research questions like pain pathology discordance, and what is the impingement and what is the mechanism. We can really talk about, have a very long conversation about the research question. So this is something like I think when you prepare for the interview, you need to think about. And what I might do better, I think, is when you talk about your research, you better to highlight your research productivity. Like when you have a very long conversation, you better to give some memorized point. Say, okay, this work result in some poster, so I'm happy to have a publication or have an award, like as a to better have to let the interviewers better remember you. And some other perspectives, because for me, I'm a very research heavy person, so my background and my career goal is very straightforward related to each other. But for fresh IMGs and applicants who are not research heavy, these are the questions we get from the questionnaire. So first is how important is research to match into PM&R? As I mentioned before, I think during the interview is, I would say like the percentage is not that high, but during when they select the candidates for interview, I think like every program has a different selection style. So for us, we have to use the 20 signals wisely to target the ones that fit you best. And how to find research opportunity, I think Anna and Santiago and Akash has shared some different perspectives. But something I can made up is outside of USCE, because in my experience, it's outside of USCE work experience in research. So one tip I can give is serious research and meaningful connections require time. So if you're like outside of US and you want to come to US first, and you need to find a research position, and you need to prepare like 1 or 2 years in the position, and you can cold email or conference or through conference find the possible PIs. And for physiatrist is the best because this is a person who can directly help you to know the field and help guide you through your application and match. But I think for physiatrists who has work as a PI, has grants in the US is very limited. So you can see some you can look for some opportunities because some physician therapists who are also work as a PI, and they are also recruit the researchers in their group, and others like related research groups. For me, I work with orthopedic surgeons, and it's also something related to PM&R. And also as Akash present and mentioned, like PM&R is very flexible. So every field, like every research, you can think about how to relate it to PM&R. And for these questions, I would like to also ask if other friends at the panel, if you have some thoughts you can share now as well. I think maybe I still have several minutes left. Like maybe Emily, where are you, Emily? How do you think
Hey,
of
Stacy.
yeah? How do you think about the research? It is important or not?
So I do think that having exposure to research is important, even for fresh graduates. But for me personally, I've been involved in both wet labs and dry labs since first year of medical school. So I wouldn't say that I'm not like research heavy because I do have multiple experiences in it. But when it comes to interviews, the questions that I got asked the most is how you design this research or why you initiate this research project. So it's not about the quantity, it's more about the whys behind your research projects, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think the other question, how do you find the opportunity during the USCE, because I think for some applicants, if you want to present some posters at APMR, and then how do you find the mentors during the USCE?
Is it also a question for me?
Yeah, or anyone who can answer.
So to me, I think I'll talk about it during my presentation as well. But
Sure.
during USC's, I'm always really active when it comes to reaching out to people. Either it's clinical related mentors or research related mentors. So I'll research the backgrounds of the mentors, and if it aligns with what I'm interested in, for example, I'm very passionate about PEDS PM&R, then I'll reach out to them and say, hey, can we talk about this project that we did? I would really love to learn about this, like A, B, and C. And I think people in PM&R are generally really willing to help each other out. So, and as an applicant, you really have to be comfortable with rejections because everyone has their own boundaries. So be respectful of other people's boundaries and take that rejection gracefully. I think that's something that we all, as an applicant, has to learn.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you, CP.
Okay, so I think my next slides. Yeah. I think this is something SJ is mentioning in the chat too, because I prepared a note and I organized some information I gathered from my previous mentors and also all the panelists where they matched. And so these notes include the interview invitations because I think this is very helpful for the future applicants and your intern year interview interventions as well. And how did you find your rotation? So I hope like every panelist can help me fill this form, and then we can share this form in our group because I think people keep asking like, how did you find your rotations? If we can organize it and gather all the information together, that will be helpful. Yeah. And then with that, yeah, that is my presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we've heard incredible insights from Anna, Akash, Santiago, and Cici on networking, mentorship, and research. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the second session. As always, people, please continue to drop those questions in the chat. We are here to answer any and every question that pops in your head, especially ones that you've already heard. You might have questions now. So make sure you do utilize that chat. Okay, so now we're going to go on to our next session. It's going to cover IMG challenges, application strategy, and interviews, U.S. clinical experience, and fellowship before residency. So first we have Damanashi. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, but she's going to go ahead and do the journey about overcoming challenges with IMG. So go ahead.
Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So hi guys, my name is Devanshi, and I'm going to be talking about overcoming challenges as an IMG. I'll start off by kind of introducing myself and sort of what helped me the most. So a little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian, so I was born in Canada, and then I went to a Caribbean international medical school. So my school was Saba University School of Medicine. It was in a small ass island in the middle of nowhere. And so like many international schools, I didn't have any exposure to PM&R. We didn't have any like affiliated PM&R sites. I didn't even really know about the specialty until I entered my third year of clerkships. During my internal medicine rotation, where we were introduced, we had to place a consult for PM&R for one of my spinal cord injury patients. And then from there, I had done an undergrad in physiology, so I'd always known that I was interested in things to do with physiology. So then coming across PM&R, which involves physiology, but also goes way beyond that, that really spoke to me. And that's how I kind of figured out that this is what I wanted to do because it really combined all of my interests. in terms of helping patients adapt, and then also recover and like go back into their day-to-day lives after everything that they had endured. So then I chose to pursue that, and then I started. So I was pretty late into the game. I kind of decided PM&R at the near the end of my third year. So I had to be quick and fast in terms of showcasing on my application that PM&R was what I wanted to do. And then yeah, I'm just happy that I matched the cycle. I'm going to be an incoming PM&R, internal medicine, and then PM&R at Rochester Regional. It's a 4-year categorical program. Some of the things that I think really helped me stand out, the biggest thing was rotations and observerships. I did about 5. This includes both rotations and observerships. I did 1 month at Rochester, 1 month at OBH, which is One Brooklyn Health, 1 month at Larkin, and then I did a few, like 1 to 2 weeks at SUNY Downstate, and then at Burke Rehab. And I think that this was the biggest thing because I mean, I matched at a place that I did a rotation at, and they really do see how you are, how you interact with the residents, how you interact with the attendings. So I think visibility is the biggest thing as an IMG. If you can even get like maybe a day or even a few days that you can kind of go in and show face to the PD, to the residents at any sort of observership site, it really does help you out. And they do remember you. The other thing was networking and connections. I started reaching out as soon as I knew at the end of my third year. I started reaching out to a bunch of residents, attendings, mentors, some of the people that from my school that I'd matched into PM&R as an IMG. And then honestly, just Instagram, like messaging people, or I even made like a med Twitter, and then I started messaging people through that. And that really helped build a lot of networking, not only just, in terms of getting observerships and rotations, but also sort of just getting feedback on my application. Like I would send them a personal statement and they would kind of give me feedback based off of that. I would, be stumped on an application, whether or not I should add this into my application cycle, and they would give me feedback on that. So that was really big. I also ended up attending one of my conferences, AAPM&R this year, to present one of the research that I had done. And that's where, again, rotations come so big because I was so close with some of the residents that I did rotations at. I had one-on-one connections with them that I was able to take on some of their research that they were doing. And they actually just let me go and present some of the research that I'd helped them do. So again, that was a great way, was through conferences. I also did a lot of volunteering. So based on where my rotations were, I would, go out of my way to find any adaptive sports events, any adaptive classes that we're running by, like volleyball, basketball. There's always something that's going on. I know there's special Olympics that's like in every state. So wherever you go, you can always find some sort of adaptive thing that you can do. I also did like stroke screenings and like healthcare screenings wherever I was. So that really helped showcase that, I was very community oriented. And then research, which I also mentioned, that was honestly through just networking. I was messaging a bunch of residents that I was with. And then I also got involved with a lot of different organizations, and that also helped me get a lot of research. So PAPA organization is huge. If you haven't heard of them, they're the Filipino Association of Physiatry. They are huge, and they really do help you, even if you're not from the Philippines. They do a lot of research, and they take on a lot of med students that are willing to help out. So I did a whole research project with them as well. So those were some of the biggest things that helped me, and that I got asked a lot about during my application cycle, and that probably helped me match this cycle. So I guess moving on to just kind of go over like how to identify IMG friendly programs. One of the biggest things I learned that was applying broadly isn't really enough. You really need to apply strategically. And what I mean by this is if you know there's a program that you're interested in, make sure you contact them. Make sure you message their PD. Make sure you Instagram message one of the residents that you know that are on the program. Just show your face, because that will help, even though you think it might not. Even if they don't reply to you, whatever it might be, like if you try and make an effort, a lot of the residents will reply back to you and give you some insight on their program, and they'll even remember you, and they might even help you secure a rotation site or an observership with them. So using resources like Freda or like Residency Explorer was helpful, but I think the biggest way was networking, which Akash and Anna mentioned. I also looked at, current resident profiles, like I mentioned, and looked at all the different PM&R residency programs and seeing which residents were IMGs, and then just message them directly through Instagram or through Twitter, or just email them if I could find their email on the platforms, and then just ask them for advice. I also another biggest way was the Match Excel doc. So each year there's a new Match Excel doc that gets made. So this year we had the 2025-2026 Match Excel doc. And every time someone gets an interview, the med students will write down, their medical stats, where they got the interview from, etc. So I would just kind of go on there. I would find out different programs that interviewed IMGs, and then I would just contact them, either the program coordinator or some of the residents from that site. And then I would put them onto the list of ones that I would want to apply to. And then if you also have like prior students from your own school or people that that are IMGs that match into PM&R, I mean, they're always a great resource to reach out to. Another big thing was virtual residency fairs. I know Pathways and PM&R holds one, but I also think AAP holds one. Both of them are really, really good resources to use to your advantage, because I would just go to the ones that I'm like the programs that I was interested in. I would ask residents a bunch of questions. If visa is something that you need, asking them directly face to face, what are the limitations? They're very, helpful in terms of answering. And if they don't know the answer, like they'll give you their email and you can always get answer back through that. So that was another big way. And then, like I mentioned, the Papa nonprofit organization. So Dr. T is the one, or Tamayo. She's a physiatrist. She runs the whole organization, and she's really, really helpful. Her whole organization is a lot of IMGs and a lot of reapplicants. And so she will actually sit down with you and go through your entire application, from your personal statement to your CV to your whole application, and give you genuine feedback on whether or not where are things to improve. I think Dr. Fuentes also does the same or similar process. So definitely reaching out to both of them is really, really good. Some of the biggest challenges that I faced, I think it was finding opportunities. That was the biggest thing, because like I said, I didn't have a PM&R affiliated site. And like unlike the large US institutions, like we are actively searching for mentors and actively searching for any sort of rotations or research that we could secure. And then another challenge was, I think I felt like I constantly need to prove myself, especially because I was very late in the game. And so I just had to show them that I did want PM&R, that I knew what PM&R was. And then my entire application sort of showed my commitment to the field. And there were many times that there were a lot of my mentors telling me, you might have to reapply, that I was way too late. And so just kind of having to balance all of that, the whole application cycle, as well as exams, research, being in fourth year, or like transitioning into fourth year, studying for steps. It was definitely hard. So those were some of the biggest challenges that I faced. And then the way that I addressed it was, as soon as I knew that PM&R was what I wanted to do, I started reaching out as early as I could. I started working on my application. I started doing my personal statement, I think even before ERAS was open. And then as soon as I knew that, I had booked some of the observerships or rotations that I could, I tried to do some shadowing here and there in between my free time that I had. So like I would just reach out to different attendings and see if I could come in for a day. I think I even did a shadowing opportunity at like a physio place, just to show that this is something that I want to do. So I think all of that does matter. Like I said, I attended conferences. I joined a bunch of PM&R clubs, because I think the biggest thing that they're looking for in your application is your why behind the PM&R and your commitment to the field. There's a lot of ways that you can still do, like you can go into any specialty and still do PM&R like work. So they want to know why you're choosing this specific specialty. And I think that the biggest way to do that is through your application. And again, to do that, you need to show your commitment. You need to be there. You need to do, like different activities, like research, joining clubs, going to conferences, being involved in research. So yeah, and then, okay, yeah, so some of the common mistakes that I felt like I had as an IMG, was applying without researching programs. It's it's like yeah, and then yeah, I guess that kind of goes without saying. Like, you want to make sure that you know exactly what programs you're applying to. You don't want to have a generic personal statement. You want to make sure that it's unique. It highlights your whole process into what got you involved into PM&R. Another big mistake was focusing only on scores. I had a very mediocre step two score. And while scores do matter, I think PM&R is very much valuable on the interpersonal skills, on the teamwork, on the leadership, and on the passion for the field itself. So being able to showcase that in your application will take you much further than just your scores. So the best advice that I would honestly give is to start very early and staying consistent. Building relationships over time rather than trying to network last minute during application cycle, and making sure that every part of your application sort of supports your story and why you chose PM&R. This includes your research, your activities, your letters, your personal statement. They should all align with the interests of the field itself. I think many of the IMGs, including myself, underestimate before even applying. And I think I wish someone had told me earlier on that, this journey doesn't need to be perfect, or it doesn't need to be traditional in order to match successfully. Networking is not about using people. It's really about making these genuine connections, because these will help you throughout the whole process. And then, resilience honestly matters a lot. So I know being an IMG in such a competitive specialty is very challenging, but it can also become one of your strengths, and that's what I used to highlight throughout my entire application process. And I think that's what really stood out during my entire interview cycle. So, yeah, thank you. I hope I didn't spend too much time.
No, that was great. Thank you so much. We loved your insight, and we can definitely hear how passionate you were and how hard you worked through your process. So we very much so appreciate your insight. So we're going to go ahead and move on to SJ. She's going to discuss application strategy and interview preparation.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Sojo, but I usually go by SJ. I'm originally from South Korea, born and raised, and I was really fortunate to match in PM&R at UC Irvine. As Lindsay has introduced, I will be mainly talking about application strategy and interview. Of course, it's just my experience, and since this is such a broad topic, I know that some of these might sound a little bit too obvious or general, but I really tried to make it practical and balanced as possible. So I hope it's helpful for some of you guys. So just to briefly share my path, I had prior PM&R training background in my home country, and from taking step one to match, it took around 1.5 years. But it really highly depends a lot by person, depending on your own experience. And although it's quite different, in my opinion, YOG itself is not a huge factor in PM&R. I'll mention this later as well, but what matters more is who you are as a person, your character, and your experiences. So about program selection for applying, my first practical limitation, I would say, was visa sponsorship. I mentioned in the comments too, but I was visa requiring in late September when I was submitting my applications. So I applied to around 70 something PM&R programs that sponsored visa, although I knew that there were 20 signals. Later, even after my visa status changed, I did not apply to additional programs. And I applied to both categorical and advanced programs. And I do think applicants should aim to apply broadly, unless you have very specific reasons not to. And I will also explain that later about signals as well. For resources, I used Residency Explorer from AAMC, where you can see things like the percentage of IMGs among applicants who received interviews from each program. And I also used program websites, reached out to seniors, residents, faculty, and mentors as well. No matter what, I really tried to do a good amount of research about each program before applying, especially to those I was signaling. In that sense, program websites were super helpful because it shows their clinical strengths, their pursuit, what type of emphasis they make on residents, resident lives, etc. Virtual residency fairs, which we do here in Pathways and PM&R, was also super helpful to see the programs in the perspective of each residents. There are also some anonymous resources that you might want to check out, Discord and Google Spreadsheet. I know that they are anonymous, so I would not let them affect you too much emotionally. But I did find them very useful to stay informed during the whole season. For example, they share their impressions for the interviews. They also share interview extension timings and so on. I also saw the question if I dual applied, and about dual applying. I personally did not dual apply. I'm afraid I cannot tell you exactly whether you should or should not dual apply, but I definitely completely understand why many IMGs consider it. I know that this process is super nerve-wracking and everybody wants some type of plan B, plan C. For me, though, I thought I would 100% regret if I matched into another specialty other than PM&R, so I decided not um, to save some money. And that said, when you are deciding if you want to dual apply or not, these questions might be a little bit helpful. Number one, is matching itself ASAP is my top priority, or is matching into PM&R my top priority? Number two, would I be genuinely okay training in another specialty for my whole life? And number three, am I being realistic about my application? So I see dual applying not just as some type of strategy, but I also see that as a personal priority type of question. Looking back, I think what helped me most for matching was having a very coherent PM&R focused story. By that, I mean my ERAS CV, letters, rotations, and interview answers all had this connections and alignment all throughout. Doesn't mean that they are supposed to be repeating the same thing again and again, but I think my application throughout were showing common strengths with different stories or items. For example, your CV can show your experiences, obviously. Your personal statements can explain why those experiences matter to you. And your letters can show you how other people saw you in professional settings. And your interviews can bring them all together into a whole in a more personal way to show your vibes. So, no matter what, I think it is really important to be intentional. Think about what type of applicant you want programs to remember you. But at the same time, of course, don't sound too
有觉得
arrogant.
有没有竹筷子可以借？
Sorry, come again? Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. Keep
Okay.
going.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say that don't try to sound too arrogant, showing off, or too desperate throughout your application. Um, Show, not tell, people say. So you don't have to necessarily say I'm a strong applicant or whatever. But yeah, try to show a lot of stories and experiences that show that describes you well as a character. Speaking of characters' strengths or overall impressions, I think there are a lot of areas that you can emphasize, which are listed up here. But honestly, it can be anything that helps programs understand you as a person, because they are also looking for a teammate, a resident who will be working with them at least for 3 years. For me, compared with some other applicants, I wouldn't call myself a super research heavy applicant. You've seen a lot of stellar people in front of me, like CC, Santiago, all of the other people. I did have a few posters and some publications but they were very few. I think my stronger areas were the other ones on the list. But one thing I really appreciated about PM&R was that they were genuinely doing holistic review. Uh, During my interviews, a lot of interviewers mentioned different things. Some mentioned about my letters, some asked about my clinical rotations, some asked about my extracurriculars. So basically, you never know which part of your application will resonate with the program. So that's why I think your application does not need to be perfect in every single category, but I do think it should make sense as a whole. Um, and I know that this has been emphasized a lot in previous presentations, but I really want to emphasize that good communications skills matter a lot, not just English fluency, but it does matter because it's basically a job interview, but just basically a communication as a whole. You need to be clear but polite, and you have to be easy to work with, and that really shapes how people remember you. I also do think that proactivity is highly important, but you must be considerate at the same time. If you're reaching out for help, reaching out for questions or anything, be clear, be mindful of other people's boundaries or time. And whenever someone helps you, even in a very small way, make sure that you show genuine gratitude to them. And I think these small interactions matter a lot in PM&R especially. I've seen some questions about addressing weaknesses or so-called red flags. Many applicants, in my opinion, have some type of weakness or concern in their application. No matter what it is, my general advice would be to address it very clearly and maturely. That does not mean you have to over-explain everything or make your whole application focused about this one weakness. But try to explain what happened in an understandable way. And more importantly, you have to show what you have learned and how you grew from this experience. It's really important to be transparent and professional, not defensive. And at the end of the day, no matter what your weakness might be, your goal is to give a context to the program to show what type of person you are, and then bring the focus back to your readiness as a resident, how willing you are to learn and how willing you are to grow within PM&R. For signaling, I think the strategy can vary a lot by applicant depending on their own priorities in their own situations, especially now that the number of signals has increased to 20. For me, the first thing, of course, I considered was if I had genuine interest in the program. I asked if whether I'd really like the program and I could imagine being part of the program. Then I considered visa sponsorship, IMG friendliness, again, from the Residency Explorer website, whether I rotated there, whether I had good interactions with people there, yeah, and also other personal locational factors. About signals, I did receive several interviews from programs that I did not signal. But now that applicants have 20 signals, I do recognize that this is much rarer from previous years, previous cycles. So again, I would recommend applying broadly while signaling very wisely because each program may interpret signals differently. But if you do have a program that you really want to go to, especially where you rotated out or had a good relationship with, I would definitely signal the program. Next, about prelim and TY programs, I also saw some questions about this as well. I applied to visa sponsoring prelim IMs and TY programs. From what I heard and learned, for example, from the PD panel last year that we had, I heard that internal medicine, IM, can be one of the most helpful specialty you might consider for a prelim track because PM&R often takes care of very medically complex patients. But TY programs are also good too. No matter what, you have to signal strategically, but I think this highly depends on your priorities as well. I hate to say this, but it does. Um, since it is just 1 year, and since this is not the main specialty that you will be training in, you have to think carefully about your priorities. Could be being close to your loved ones, or it could be having a good foundation for your PGY2 and PM&R, or having a good quality of life, whatever. So yeah, be realistic, but also honest with yourself. And I've also seen that some prelim and TY programs may be soapable, so I would not be too discouraged based on only like interview numbers, especially for your intern year. But yeah, that's about it. I also saw some questions about interviews. For getting interviews, I think what helped was basically same with what I've mentioned, having a coherent PM&R story, showing strong commitment to PM&R, and good show that you have good understandings about PM&R. I also saw a question asking what was the question that you have been asked most commonly. If I have to answer, I would say the most basic things. Tell me about yourself. Why PM&R? Why our program? What do you look for in a program? Um, but I should mention that interview styles were very, very different by programs. Some were very conversational and personal, but I've had interviews where questions were much more situational or behavioral. So I would recommend again checking Discord or spreadsheet so that you can prepare for your interviews. One thing really important, no matter where you're interviewing with, is that interviews are supposed to be conversations, not oral exams. At least for PM&R, you definitely have to prepare and know your story, but don't be like memorizing the whole thing and just read it out loud. Um, and another mistake that you don't want to make is being too generic, especially for questions like why our program, where you can show your eagerness, your specific reason why you want to be in the program. Um, at the end of the day, programs are not just evaluating your answers themselves. They're also like seeing your vibes, and they're also asking themselves if they would enjoy working with you, being around you. So again, as I mentioned, having good communication skills matter a lot. I also got some questions about sending thank you emails or any type of follow-ups after interviews. Um, to answer, yeah, I did. Yes, I did send out thank you emails to each interviewer after each interview. But I really tried to make it very brief, but also very sincere. To do so, I made the emails very personalized, depending on the person or the conversation we had during the interview. But I did not repeatedly follow up afterward unless I had a meaningful update that I have to share or a necessary reason to contact the program. I'm not sure how much thank you emails affect ranking or everything. I personally think it doesn't really affect a lot, but I would not overestimate the impact, but I do think they are a good way to show some type of gratitude or professionalism after the interview. Yeah, so I had to cover a lot, so just feel free to ask any questions if you felt the answers were a little bit superficial. But if you felt the answers were a little bit superficial, but yeah, that's about it on my end.
Thank you, SJ. Yes, definitely everyone put your questions in the chat. That's what we're going to answer them. We're going to go ahead and move on to our last two speakers. So thank you everyone for sticking with us. We're going to have Emily do our USCE component, and then afterwards we're going to have Monica. So go ahead, Emily.
Hey everyone, this is Emily speaking. Can y'all see my screen right now?
Yes, we
Okay,
can see your.
awesome. So my nose is a little bit stuffy today, so please bear with my voice right now. But I'm Emily. I recently matched into UCF Orlando transitional year and also Johns Hopkins PM&R, and I'm here today to share my experiences with PM&R USCEs. So just a quick disclaimer, all the content shared is based on my personal experience, so please use your own judgment based on your individual circumstances, because what worked for me might not work for you, and what didn't work for me might work for you. So a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Taiwan. I did my med school in Taiwan. I pushed back my graduation by a year to fit rotations, hands-on rotations in my schedule. So I graduated last year, and I am visa requiring. Both J1 or an H1B visa works for me. I passed my step one, step two, and step three on first attempt, but I'm gonna be completely transparent. My step two score is lower than average. So back to what all of the speakers have shared, PM&R is really a specialty that's about your whole profile. They do holistically review you as an applicant. So don't be too discouraged if some of the numbers within your application didn't work out for you. And as for step three, I did very last minute. I did January this year, and I sent a update email to all of the programs I applied to let them know that I passed my step three. So I applied to 39 PM&R programs, including the 20 ones that I signaled, and also around 100 TY plus prelim IMP surgery. I got 11 PM&R interviews out of the 39 PM&R programs I applied to. 9 of them are the ones I've signaled, and 2 of them are combined PEDS PM&R programs. Um, I only got one prelim PEDS program, so I was expecting to have to sub for my PGY1 program. But for I do think that this might be due to my lower than average step 2 score and also due to my lack of IM PEDS related layers of recommendation. So I'll talk about this in detail later, but all my layers of recommendations are in PM&R. So I ended up having to sub for a PGY1 program, but I do think that having already matched into an advanced program really helped with my soaping process. So even if you have to soap, don't stress about it. You'll find a position anyway. And one thing I really want to stress is that of the 11 interviews I got, 5 of them are from sites that I have rotated at. So for me personally, I do think that having rotated at really various like sites has helped with my interviews, but I'll dig into more details later. So, what is a USC? It stands for United States Clinical Experiences, and there are different types of them. For hands-on rotations, it usually refers to rotations where you have access to the medical system, you can perform procedures on your patients. And for observerships, it's self-explanatory. You're basically observing what's happening at the clinic. So, you don't really have access to the medical system. You can't really touch the patient technically. And then there's also a really rare form of rotations called telerotations. So they're conducted remotely, where you're basically sitting in front of a computer. Some of the programs might allow you to access their medical system remotely, but most of the time you're joining their didactics or lectures, and that's it. And one thing that I think everyone should keep in mind is that a rotation might be sponsored either from a medical school, from a program, or even from a single faculty. So say that if you reach out to um, a program coordinator and they told you that their program does not allow rotations, it does not necessarily mean that their faculty can't sponsor you as an individual. So it really depends case by case. So there are several questions I often get from people. Does a hands-on rotation really makes a huge difference? From my personal experience, a hands-on rotation really builds a solid foundation for my future rotations because once I know what the clinical flow is through being really hands-on with the patient, I know what I can do as an observer in the future. So I do think that it makes a small difference, but at the same time, hands-on rotations are really expensive. So when it comes to PM&R, um, I don't think you have to like spend tons and tons of money just to get yourself a hands-on rotation. And I like an observership could work just fine for you. And then when it comes to YOG, as a lot of the applicants has mentioned, it's not a crucial deciding point on whether you get an interview or not. But I did push back my graduation just to reduce my YOG and to get hands-on rotations. So I think it really depends on your circumstances. What you really have to think about is if you push back your graduation, what are you gonna do within that year where you have an extended student status? Is there something meaningful that you can do as a student? And if the answer is no, it's totally okay to graduate a little bit earlier and then try to do other things that are meaningful to your application as well. For example, find yourself a research position that might be more helpful than doing a hands-on rotation based on your case. And then last but not least, does the specialty of your rotation matter? To me, majority of the rotations I did are within PM&R, but I also did a few PM&R adjacent rotations. For example, I did two family medicine rotations. The reason behind it is because I want to see how the community end of medicine looks like, because I want to be connected with the patient on a community level. I also did a trauma burn ICU, and it's kind of like the other way around. I want to see what the acute end of the patient population I'm seeing in PM&R looks like. So it doesn't the rotations that you do doesn't necessarily have to be entirely PM&R, but you'll have to find a way to connect it back to PM&R. And for research rotations, I think they're also worth doing if that's your only option. But even for research rotations, there's still ways for you to get clinically involved. For example, you can talk to your supervisor or talk to other physicians within the department. Be transparent, say that, hey, um, I'm a research fellow, I'm a research student, and I was wondering if it's possible for me to observe some of your clinical work. And a lot of the times people will appreciate your proactiveness and they will allow you to like observe in their clinical work. So just be transparent and be upfront for of what you want from that experience. So this is how my timeline looked like. So I started to apply for USCE starting early January of 2024. And because I was still an active medical student back then, it took around 3 months for me to figure out, do program research, and then file all of my applications. And then I completed all my applications by the end of April 2024, and then started my step one dedicated. I completed my step one by the end of September, and then flew to the United States in November and completed three hands-on rotations. Um, at um at the start of March 2025, I went to AAP. That's where I met Paul and SJ, and we initiated this committee. And I also made a lot of friends. I reached out to a lot of programs during AAP, and then I scheduled five of the following observerships I got during AAP. Um, then I flew back to Taiwan. I continued studying for my step two. I did one telerotation in family medicine while studying for step two. Graduated from med school in August 2025. Wrote my step two around that time, and then flew to the States for more rotations, observerships, and also for more conferences. So from 2025 August all the way till January this year, I was preparing for my interviews and doing observerships at the same time. So that's what my schedule generally looks like. So, a question that I commonly get from people is how did you find those rotations? Because I did get a lot of rotation opportunities. There are several tracks that you could go for. First of all, if you're still an active medical student and your medical school has affiliation with a US medical school, go for it, try to ask for a rotation. And if your medical school is within the VISLO system, also I also encourage you to apply through VISLO. But unfortunately, my med school did not have those opportunities. So what I did was I applied directly through program websites. So I research um, websites of the medical schools and also their PM&R departments to see if they're open for observerships or rotations. And then there's six programs I applied to, 6 medical schools I applied to. And out of those 6 programs, I got 3 interviews, 2 at UAB and 1 at UPMC. I also tried cold emailing, but there wasn't a lot of luck in that. I didn't get any rotations out of them. But what really worked for me was asking in person. So I went to conferences, I approached attendings, program directors, or even residents. I was very transparent about my situation. I let them know that I'm at IMG looking for rotations. And fortunately, I got 5 rotations out of those opportunities. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in-person conferences. You can also go to, like, say, an online webinar and then email the speakers after the webinar, or even through volunteering opportunities, you might meet um a an attending through that opportunity. Just reach out and ask if they're willing to provide a rotation for you. And you, like I said during CC's presentation, you will have to be prepared to face a lot of rejection through this process. But the friendships and the connections I built through this is really meaningful for me and has helped me through this entire process. And then last but not least, there's also agents out there for you to um, schedule rotations with private clinics, but I did 2 of them just to stay clinically involved during my step 2 dedicated, but I did not use the letters of recommendation I got from them. I did not put them on my CV. It's just for me to fill the gaps within my gap year. So when it comes to applying to USCEs, I would suggest starting as early as possible because it might take months or even years for you to schedule a rotation. And really just apply broadly. Don't be picky about the school name. Don't be picky about whether this is an IMG friendly program or not. Because even if this is not a program that has a residency or not a program that takes IMG um, as a resident, you can still build really meaningful connections that will bring you a long way. So there's 2 types of rotation, um, inpatient and outpatient, and for most cases, it's a mixture of both. You might be rounding on the inpatient side in the morning and then doing an outpatient observership in the afternoon. And this is just what generally the schedule generally looks like. And this is what an outpatient clinic looks like. So, when you're doing a rotation, what should you expect? You should expect yourself to be as involved as possible. So when I mentioned being involved, it means that actively involving yourself in tasks rather than asking other people to delegate work to you. For example, in addition to the roundings that happen on a daily basis at the bedside, you can also actively ask your attending, I heard that there's a team conference today. Can I maybe present a patient today? Or if you heard that one of the patients that you're taking care of has a family meeting, ask your attending if they're comfortable with you being in that family meeting and just observing. So be as active and as involved as you can, but also be transparent and ask for feedback. So as a medical student or as a recent graduate, your role in a rotation is not to demonstrate how well you are in your clinical skills. It's more about showing um, your communication skills and you as a pleasant coworker to work with and during the 3 or even 4 years of residency. So I always encourage people to be transparent and ask for feedback. For example, if it's my first time being in a stroke clinic, I'll be very transparent with my attending and say, "Hey, this is my first time being a stroke clinic. I heard that there are Botox injections that might be going on. I was wondering if you will be comfortable with me interviewing the patient or me assisting in the procedures. So being transparent and always ask for feedback towards the end of your rotation will bring you a long way. And be reliable and pleasant to work with is really important. And when it comes to being reliable, it's not only about your clinical work, it's also about making the clinical flow more fluent. For example, if you notice that the resident is he or she might be printing out handouts every time before rounds, then you can stand up and offer help in that and say, hey, I noticed that you're always printing those before rounds. Can I like assist in this? And if they say so, it really demonstrates that you're a pleasant person to work with. Um, it's also, sorry. It's also really important for you to reach out during your rotations. And by reaching out, I think I briefly touched on it during CC's presentation. Reach out to program directors, reach out to other faculties, reach out to potential um, research opportunities. Be transparent about what your situation is and um, be transparent about what you want from this experience. And I got several research experiences um, from the connections I found during my USCEs. And then be as friendly as possible to always do your best to make friends with the residents and also the medical students that you met during your USCs, because these will be your strongest support during application season. Whenever you feel really stressed out by the situation, there will be people that you can talk to. And I found, and even during conferences, they are the group of people that you can hang out with. So when it comes to like following up with the attendees and residents, what I did was I tried to be as natural as possible. I reach out when there's, oops, sorry. I try to be um as natural as how I usually make friends. So I don't like necessarily email them on a weekly basis and update my stuff. It's more about like I think about them. I found this, like say that I visit this interesting restaurant and I think that they might be interested in that. I'll share that information with them. So it's more of a natural interaction rather than a robotic follow-up, like weekly follow-up. And then last but not least, when you're doing your rotation, it's important for you to reflect on what you gained at that institution. So, for example, if you're doing a rotation in Baltimore, you might be asking yourself, is this a place that I see myself growing and thriving for the upcoming 4 years? And then ask your residents what's their experience like being in that um being in that program. I think these are as much as you're presenting yourself to the program, you're also being at that program physically to see if this program is a good fit for you. So it's a mutual process. So last but not least, I'm gonna briefly touch on LRs and slows. So um, the LLRs I used was three PM&R LLRs, two from my hands-on rotations and one from my research slash observership rotation. And I also got one PM&R slow, and it's from a hands-on rotation that I did here in Taiwan. So the PM&R slow was announced pretty late in the season. I think it was announced in April, and I was already back in Taiwan. But fortunately, I found a visiting professor from the States who was able to observe my clinical skills, and he was able to provide a slow for me. So I would say that when it comes to slow, even though in the past cycle um it's not required for all of the programs, but providing one might be helpful for your application. And if you're preparing for a SLO right now, I encourage you to go to the AAP website. They have the form readily available for you to see. So go through what their requirements are and see which rotation works the best for you to obtain a SLO, because it does ask some questions about your hands-on skills. So I would advise you to get a SLO from a hands-on rotation. So there are several questions I commonly get regarding LRs. First of all, which specialty should we use? So for me personally, I use all PM&R LRs because I feel like as an IMG, it's important for me to demonstrate my commitment to this specialty and letting people know that I'm not like dual applying or I'm not using PM&R as a backup. Um, After careful consideration, I did not use a LOR from my home country. The reason behind it is because I'm a fresh graduate. So comparing to other IMGs that might have already um has already completed a residency, I don't have that many experiences in my home country in PM&R for them to speak really strongly in my favor. And about the numbers of LORs that you should be asking for, I would recommend asking for as many as possible because I asked for 8 LORs in total, but I only got 5 back. 3 of the layer writers, they're really busy, so I don't blame them. They didn't really um get back with me and upload my LOR. So I would recommend getting as many as possible. And then when it comes to who to pick as a layer writer, um, I personally didn't use any of the program director layer writers. Um, I would say pick people that really knows you personally rather than picking someone who has a big name, and be transparent with them about what you want in an LR. So let them know what you're looking for in your future program and ask them to um, try to incorporate those into their layers. And then regarding the timing for asking for an LR, it really depends on the circumstances. I would encourage you to talk to the residents that you feel comfortable with and let them know that you're trying to get an LR and ask based on their understanding of those attendings, what would be a better timing to ask for an LR. So they might suggest you to ask really upfront day one at your rotation. It might be at the middle of your rotation or even towards the end of your rotation. I think there's no perfect answer to this, but just based on your evaluation and your circumstances, pick the timing that you think works the best for you. And last but not least, I cannot stress enough, LRs and slows are crucial for your interviews and applications. During my interviews, a lot of the interviewers has mentioned how much they like my LRs. So I think it definitely contributed a lot to me getting my interviews. So thank you Pathways and PM&R IMG committee for organizing this event. It really is a full circle moment for me. Um, me, SJ, and Paul established this committee about a year ago, and now being able to come back and share my experience as a panelist means a lot to me. And a lot of the panelists has talked about how important connection is when it comes to PM&R. And when it comes to connection, it's not about how many program directors you know or how many attendees you know. It's more about the genuine friendships that you make along the way. So, be comfortable being yourself and be um transparent, vulnerable, be open to the peers that you meet. And these people will become your biggest support throughout this really tough but really fruitful journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emily. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our very last panelist for today, Monica. She's going to finish us off with talking about completing fellowship of 4 residency. So I want to thank everyone for sticking with us and seeing us through with us. So go ahead.
Thank you. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay,
can see.
perfect. Wow. Thank you. I think my topics were a little bit special, and I just checked the time. We are a little bit behind the schedule, so I'll try my best to catch. The last speaker always taking all the time stress. So yeah, I think this is for me, this is a special topic, and I think for this topic, I assuming there will be more like much narrow audience like can like want to follow this topic. But I will share my stories, and I'm Monica, and I just matched cancer rehab fellowship in the University of Miami Health System. My background is I'm a long YLG, IMG, and I'm a PM&R doctor from China. I did my resident there and actually did long years of the attending physician, PM&R physician, and research experience. So because my family immigrate to US, so that's why I like immigrate to US with them together. I think why I'm saying this will be a little bit narrow for the audience is like I feel to choose the fellowship before the resident. I mean that would be more like the people who had already had the PM&R program, or especially you have some like specialist, like you have some folks on some part of the like your interest topics, either the cancer, spinal cord injury, brain injury. So I will try my best to just try to introduce what options can you choose, or what options you can have, or you can try to find explore for yourselves if someone has the same experience as mine. Yeah, I also had in some before I immigrate to the US, I have some experience of the US like research, also clinical observationship. Because before I immigrate, I had a 1 year NIH scholarship, so I had that in 2019, and that's brings me a lot of connections during that year. To be honest, at that time, I'm still not thinking about moving to US. So I'm thinking like what I learn and what I see, and I can go back to China and keeping practice PM&R in China. So at that time, I think that's also a key turning point for me, because that year I think I visit at least 10 PM&R in like comprehensive hospitals, or some special facilities like the cancer hospitals. So I did a lot of the clinical observationship. It's just not too long. Like every hospital took about 2 weeks to 3 weeks. The longest time is 1 month. So I did lots of the like this kind of, for me is traveling scholarship for me at that time. So I think that helps me got so many connections before I really thinking about come to the US and starting my resident. So because of my background before in China, I was focused on the cancer rehab. After many years of the PM&R practice, I'm really personally very interested in the cancer patients. And I know this is a very, very like at the starting point. And I know now it's also a popular topic and popular field in the US PM&R. So I think that's also brings me some opportunities, like I get a fellowship first. So that's my brief background, and basically the main requirements for the fellowship and the ECFMG certificate you need to do. Step 3, which is actually I didn't finish the step 3 exam, but I know for a fellowship it is required. And that's just also we will talk about later. It's actually very, very flexible if the program wants you, it can be adjusted. Like for example, for me, because my situation is I was like in my third trimester when I get the offer, so they know I actually cannot take in the step 3 exam as soon as possible. But the hospital, after their continued medical education like office, they talking about my situation, and they actually thinking about, because I don't have the resident before, so they took me as like a PGY1 student, like for like that. So then they decide, oh, you don't need to take the step 3 before you starting your fellowship, so you can finish that during the your fellowship year. So that makes this step 3 become flexible. So, but I know this is I'm trying my best to finish the step 3. Just the I can't take it right now, but I know so many other program they need a step 3. So it's just depends on the program. And I'm also I don't need visa. So how I get the offer, I actually like I totally can get what Santiago was saying about the immigrant physician. Actually, to be honest, when I decide to move to US, I try to focus on the research rather than go back to the clinical practice, because during like more than 10 years of practice of PM&R, I have so many like research ideas. I want to continue the research. And during the transition, like waiting for the green card, waiting for the official working, I did so many other rather than clinical practice. Like I even working in the industry, and we have a startup company doing the AI like based brain mapping for the like neurosurgery for like in to mapping the brain tumors. Like we do this kind of research and start a company. And also I continues to having 1 year's full time of education in the Harvard Medical School in the clinical research. And then I was go back to the NIH with my mentor was still having, I still have a very strong connection in with the NIH group. So I go back to NIH doing the clinical research. But then there things happens, and what makes me really want to go back to the clinical practice is I really feel I miss the time I seeing the patients. And I did several years of research, I feel my ideas become like drawing. And for us, we all know that all the ideas, all the research questions are coming from your practice and coming from the patients that you really like taking care of them and thinking about how to solving the problem. So that's why I decided to go back to the clinical practice. And I also starting very late. And to be honest, I didn't trying to even start prepare the step exams like recently. So it's kind of in a hurry, but that's why, but I feel like that's really I want to do. So when I decided, okay, I will go for it. So actually, I was trying to do the traditional way, which is doing the resident and then fellowship. But unfortunately, I feel like I got it. Actually, it's not unfortunately. My mentor in the NIH, one day he just bring the idea, says, oh, he know a previously research fellow in our group, and he's applying for neurology a resident, and at the meantime, the same year, he also applied for the traumatic brain injury fellowship in the PM&R. So, and he got it. But he also got matched with the neurology, so he decided to do the resident before the fellowship. So why not try it? And you have so many years of cancer rehab background, and I know so many cancer rehab programs, program directors. Why not just go for it? But actually, that time was already past the official application time, which is usually the July of the year. So remember that time if you want to apply for the fellowship, that was the starting. I think that was the end of the starting or end. I think end of the application time, deadline of the application time. So I actually missed that point. But then because of the connection and I'm sending emails to see if anyone knows, because this is a small world. And if I know some of the cancer rehab program director, and they will contact with others programs and to check if there's any unfilled positions. And luckily, there's I think at that time, I know there's 3 positions that still didn't filled. So I immediately sent my application package. And by the way, before that, I'm already getting ready of my package. I think that helps me a lot to do everything very quickly. So I sent my application package at the end of December, but unfortunately, rejected by all of the 3 because the only reason is they want the resident first. They want at least you have the board certificate to start the clinical practice. So I feel okay. This door is closed, but the things happened in the AAP meeting, and I totally 100% agree with all the speakers before saying connection conferences. You should go for it. At that time, even I was like in my 32 weeks pregnancy, I still decided to go there because I was saying, okay, I don't want to miss that. And I'm not encourage people doing that because it's everyone's different. But if you are really want to seek for the opportunity, you must like do whatever there because that was the time in February. So I went to the AAP meeting, and there is a job fair event. If anyone has joined AAP this year, or I know there's a PM&R also having this kind of similar like job fair events at some evenings. So definitely go for there and go connections, introduce yourself. And my lucky thing is the University of the Miami, the cancer rehab program director, is actually one of my supervisor when I was in 2019 when I was in the MD Anderson doing the cancer rehab observationship. She was one day of the attending who supervised me, and she's now the program director. And she said, "Hey, Monica, we have a position and we don't need the resident. If you finish your step exam, do you want to start the job start from July the 1st?" I say, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, at that time, maybe I was thinking so many overwhelming things like pregnancy and moving, relocated. But I know my brain is behind, but my mouth will say yes. So, I mean, that's my personal story to get the offer. But I know this is just my personal story, but from this story, I would like to say is don't feel it's impossible. Even all their program program website saying they want the board certificate, they want you to do the resident. Don't feel free to reach out to them, ask them individually. Ask all the unfilled positions individually and call them, and they are very good. They talk to you. They give you a phone call back and tell you why. So do not there's no hurt to asking because the website maybe is not updated. Like for the University of Miami, their website still saying we want the resident before the fellowship, but still there's something can be flexible. So if you are really interested on the fellowship starting, this is different from the resident match is you really need to check individually programs and reach out to the program director in person or give the email and talking about why you like this like cancer rehab, why you like spinal cord injury, etc. So that's the key part if you really want to start a fellowship first. So this is I think this is the key slides that I want to share with is this information you can also find in the AAPMR or AAP website. I listed here this is all the current PMR fellowship options in the United States. And above the line was they are the ACGME accredited fellowship, which means they actually need a resident. I can't say every of them need, but most of them require resident before fellowship. But below the line, all this fellowship, some of them require, but just I say it's not hard to asking. So they are all non-ACGME fellowship program. If you are interested in any of this, just can reach out to them. And all these two website. They offer their program director contact emails and their website. Just go for it. Don't be scared of what their website saying, like we need a board certificate, we need finish the resident. If you are really, really interested in one topic and you have experience, just be brave to asking. Maybe you got some opportunities and some surprise came out. So I will put in these links in the chat later. So I kind of covered these slides. I will just skip it. So the most challenge, as I mentioned, is fellowship before, which most of the programs actually still needs you have board certificate because you are working as a fellow in the clinical practice. If you don't having certificate, some of the hospital cannot carrying your license. But my situation, my experience is in Florida. They actually can, if you are IMG, if you finish the USMA steps, and you can apply for a training physician license, which can support me to do the clinical practice in the fellowship. So that's what I am doing. That's why I skipped the resident first and then go to the fellowship first. I still can practice, do the clinical practice. And that's actually I took it as a very, very good hands-on experience. Since we are IMG, it's hard for us to getting more hands-on experience. And for this kind of 1 year, I definitely will gain much, much more very real world clinical practice. And I feel if future I will do the resident, I will be more confident for that. Also, I think the challenge is, I also mentioned this before, is don't hesitate to asking, just asking them and networking in the conferences. And don't trust the website. Some of them maybe long time didn't update it. So just to go for the updated information. And the lessons I learned from my special journey, even if it's coming very quickly, I think, first of all, you must, not must, maybe it's a strong, you took it as, it's not like the fellowship didn't guarantee you to the resident after that. It just, you really like this topic, like cancer rehab. You really love brain injury. And you really want to, like after resident, you still want to go to this pathway. So I think that's the goal, to start or to get this fellowship first, because I know that will be my long-term career. So even I do the resident, I will still do the cancer rehab fellowship after that. So for me, it just exchanged the turns, and also I will get more experience before I do the resident. And also another way is during the application season, if you are long YOG like me, like you have PM&R resident experience before, just plan for this plan B. And it's not hard to applying for the fellowship. Maybe it's lucky that my previous colleagues, he get both of resident match and fellowship, and then you just choose whatever you want. So for us, always have a plan B and fellowship for the long, the experience or long years PM&R practice in your home countries, IMGs. I think that's a good way to do parallelize applying. Another way is I said before, I really took it as an experience, for hands-on experience. So even I was working in NIH. It's also a clinical hospital, and which they do research, and I have patients. Also, we see patients daily time. But I think this fellowship will definitely give me a very real PM&R practice experience rather than the clinical experience. So most important thing, connecting, don't hesitate to asking, email, networking. That's everyone was mentioned before. This is most important. And also for fellowship, I think another very important thing is you need to show why you need to show something about what you are focused. So for me, I have cancer rehab research background, clinical practice background back in China. So that's why they see I really want to be in the cancer rehab fellowship. So the last, what next? I'm sorry, this is the empty slides because I also don't know what next. For me, personally, I will still want to apply for the resident. I said before, I really miss the clinical practice. I really want to, in the future, become a research physician. But if there's any way after fellowship, you can starting practice. We don't know. I don't know. I know I'm not the first one in the PM&R do the fellowship first. But when I'm starting, if there's anything like I find or any policy changed, I will update to if anyone interested, feel free to connect me. My email was here. So we will share about this special experience and maybe it will works in the future for like a special pathway. I know the radiology, the anesthesia, and neurosurgery also having the fellowship before the resident or even fellowship, and then they can, if you are staying in the hospital for long years, and then you can transfer from restricted license to be a full license in some states. So there's something possible in the future, but I don't have the experience. I apologize, but I will keep updated after I finish them or anything I know after I join the fellowship program. So the last, I think as the end of the speaker, I'll just say, try to encourage everyone, either you are fresh IMG or a long like OILG, IMG, sometimes we know when the one door is closed, there definitely will be, just believe it, there will be another path is waiting for you to discover. Never lose the hope. For me, I have so many difficulties. I haven't mentioned the industry. I joined the startup company. They cut off the research. And then when I was in NIH, my funding also be cut. So there's always some difficulties you will never expect in your life, but just believe there will be another pathway in front of you if you just keep moving on. And
Thank
the most
you.
important thing is you know what you want to become. Like I really like, as Jay says, I like PM&R. That's why I was focused on PM&R. I really just go back to the PM&R when I was in the US or in China. I do want to be a PM&R physician. And you know what meaningful work for you. And that's the most thing of the life, what life brings you. And when the opportunity comes, just be ready to catch it. That's what
So
we can do.
yes, so
And
yes, thank you so much. But yes, very, very true. I just want to say thank you to all of our presenters tonight. Everyone did such a great job. We really appreciate the time that you took to make these presentations. What you've instilled on us, we're definitely going to take back. And please, if you don't mind, just go ahead and leave your information in the chat if you do feel comfortable. And then whatever we have put in the chat, those documents that we did earlier, please go and look at those. So thank you again to our panelists. Thank you again to my committee, Pathways and PM&R as a whole. And so, yeah, thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Stay connected. That's like the theme tonight, and although some of us are in the beginnings, we do have people that have gone before us and have made it. So that is very much so an encouragement to all of us. So continue to work hard, everyone. Keep connected. This is a community and we are here for each other. All right.